Welcome to the round table. I'm Jennifer Eller, and with me today are my guests. Well, my co-host. I can see. I haven't sat in this state for a while, and I can just see you staring at me as I'm talking, and you know how I feel about that.
Well, I know, but it's still yeah. Okay, go.
It's already my co-host, Mike Hill, our producer, Nick Wilson, and then our guests today are John and Melinda Davis.
Is it better to side-eye you instead of look at you?
I don't know.
Yeah, I
You're
got
off
it.
again.
I forgot.
That's okay.
It's just a like if somebody's talking, don't you usually look at them?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not when they're looking this way and you can see like the eyes boring into you as you're
Doesn't
talking.
that happen with you when you have meetings with people when they like look over your shoulder and you're still looking at them?
No.
It never happens to you?
Nope. So, okay. So I'm going to a couple little get to know you questions. So if you could travel forward in time or backwards in time, where would you go? I'm just curious if you both would go to the same place or not.
Where would you go?
I think she asked you first.
Okay.
Would you go forward? Would you go forward and back or back?
I wouldn't go forward. I'd go back to a simpler time. Like I feel like I almost could have been Amish, but back to like little prairie. You got to have a horse and plow a field.
You would go back to that?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. A little simpler time. So.
Little house on the prairie.
Yeah.
Simpler as far as the rat race, but harder physically.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah, that would.
You could be
Grow
a
your
Charles Ingalls.
Grow your own food, shoot your or hunt it. So.
Yeah.
What about you?
Die at 30.
Because you got an illness that can't be cured.
I'm with you, though. I think the simpler would be way better.
Simpler's better for me, yeah.
Yeah. I would probably go back to simpler too. Let's,
Would you go Little House on the Prairie back?
yeah, probably. It's fun, and I like all the different gadgets that they had. When you go into antique stores, you can see all that, and I'm like, wow, I wish I knew how to use that.
Are you an antiquer? Do you buy antiques?
No. Okay. I just enjoy.
Yeah, looking at them.
Yeah.
No, we got stuff handed down from our parents, like my dad. We've got a cider press, we've got a washboard, just different things that, and they kind of raised us that way, or raised me that way. We can.
Do you do cider?
Our own food, and I watched him make cider. I haven't done it.
No?
No, he did all that. He reloads his own bullets, made his own cider. He taught us canning, freezing, stuff like that. But
Yeah, so you're going to survive the zombie apocalypse.
for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Just got to keep them all away.
Yeah, we're just going to go to his house.
That works. We have a couple of people we can go house
No,
we
I
can
know.
go to
We
now.
just keep lining them up. We're putting a list together.
Yeah.
This is if zombie apocalypse happens, everybody, this is where you need to go.
Okay.
So don't keep us away.
No.
Do you have a favorite TV show or movie that you watch together?
Together?
Do you watch
Yeah.
TV?
Not like we did. We've kind of backed off on that a lot, actually. But my favorite movie would be like 300.
Oh,
the
wow.
Spartans, and that's just something that always stuck in my head. Where they were in the middle of that trail, in comes the Pharaoh, and then there's they're going to go in the battle against the thousands, and then they all come together, make the shield around them all.
Yes.
It's cool.
To be a Spartan.
That would be my favorite movie.
Okay.
And my favorite TV show is America's Funniest Videos.
America's Funniest what?
Videos.
Oh.
And I like to watch it. It's on Sunday nights at 8.
That's a good one.
That is
I would have not expected that one. I don't think I've heard anybody say America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah.
What's your favorite type of video? I mean, like the kids
Dogs.
or like the dogs? Yeah, probably dogs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like there's one that a lady convinces her, I believe it's her dad, that her water broke in the hallway, and that's really funny. That one makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
That's funny. So how did you two meet?
High school.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Are you from Huntington?
Yes.
Wow. So you're high school sweethearts.
Yep.
When in high school? Sophomore year, senior year?
His senior, my freshman.
Wow. Going for the young ones, huh?
Yeah.
So if there's that much age difference,
There's
so
not.
well, grade wise, you
It's
know,
a year,
Yeah.
senior and freshman. So how because you didn't have the same classes, you know, so I just saw her in the hallway or football game or no, come on.
Do you remember? He doesn't. I can tell.
Go ahead.
It was at
I'll
a
fill in the
school
gaps.
dance,
Yes.
and he came up and said, "Would you like a piece of gum?" And then
That was the pickup line.
and then he
Wow.
asked me to dance, and
And it was love at first sight.
well, yeah, I mean, he was the first guy that ever paid attention.
Is that how you remember it?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
he's still chewing gum.
I am, yeah.
That was the pickup line then, and it's still good now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So what did that journey look like then in dating? Because that was part of your story, why you wanted to have both of you on, because you did meet in high school. You didn't have the typical high school. What do I want to say? I want to say career, but that's not what I want to say. The typical high school story. So
Yeah.
You don't have the typical high school story?
Well, like, so we did everything, I don't know, kind of backwards. So our senior year, which my senior year would have been your freshman year, right?
I was held back in fourth grade, so that made my age difference too. So we're really like, he turns 57 next week,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm 55, and so there's just that much. of it.
Yeah, not much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got to know each other, and it was for a very short amount of time. And so we basically, in 1985, we got married, had a child.
It's not the order.
Okay, we did everything backwards. Graduated high school.
You graduated or she
Yes,
graduated?
I graduated, and I was signing up for the Navy already in the delayed entry program. As a junior, I already signed up. So she got pregnant, and then I graduated high school. We got married, joined the Navy.
So you got married when you were a sophomore in high school?
Freshman, I quit.
Wow.
I was 15 and a half.
Yeah, and she followed me to the Navy. So, and
Wow.
that's
and your
where we
parents signed off for
Yep,
you to get
I was
married.
emancipated.
Wow. Yeah.
How
Wow.
did I
That's
not
awesome.
know this?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
And we'll celebrate 40 years in July.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So signed up and just went with you to the Navy. What does that even mean?
A lot.
Like when you're 15 years old and you're
Yeah.
just
Wow.
That was a lot.
take off and go to the Navy, like, does that mean go stay on base? Like, what do you
Yeah,
take
I
off,
was
go
just-
to the Navy mean?
Went to Memphis, Tennessee first, and then Virginia Beach,
She
Norfolk.
did. Yeah, that's where you
Norfolk.
showed up. I went to boot camp.
Yes.
Came out of boot camp. At that point, she's very pregnant.
And he's very ball-headed.
I was bald-headed. So we looked at each other. And we got married. I don't know. We did our honeymoon at the campground at Kilsaquah here in Huntington. And then a couple weeks later, I'm off to boot camp, and then we meet up at the end of it. And like I said, she's got the bump. I'm bald-headed, and we just kind of look at each other like, oh, wow, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And we just pushed on forward. We knew
Yeah.
that God, put us together. Then we also had our first child that year.
Well, hold on a second. So, like you did? Like at that you're both like real strong in your faith? And
Not
you're
at that
like-
point. No, I mean, eventually we were.
No, I know, but like at this point, you said like we looked at each other and just knew God put us together. Like you
Yeah.
thought that process about
Yeah,
God
oh, yeah.
even
Yeah,
then.
we asked
Yeah.
God to bless the sin that, like, we knew we were sinners, and we admitted that, and because he had accepted Christ when he was 16, and I had at 7, but then later on, a lot of times I want to be baptized in October. I have been baptized 2 times. One was when I was like 10, and it was because I noticed this one boy in the church always hugged everybody when they got out of the baptism, and so I wanted to be hugged. And
Wow.
so that was the first time, and that's
Yeah.
the
At
truth.
least you're honest.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, no,
I mean, people do
And
it for crazy
So like
reasons.
you sat in church, and Dad always made sure that if Mom and Dad went to church, it was they wore a belt. My mom wore a belt around her neck because there was 4 girls. So we did. If we misbehaved, we got taken to the front step outside, whipped, and then put back in the seat, and you sat there. Then through, their life as us, I am 15 and a half when I'm gone with him. So
Yeah.
there's memory of church. Dad made sure that we were always on the church bus. It was called the Joy Bus that came through the trailer
Yeah.
court, picked us up and took us to church. Then when we married and after the kids were all born, raised, we had made a decision as a family to get baptized. And at that point, I felt like I was doing it. My focus was always the kids. So it was more of like a representation to them that this was taking place, but that's not the case this time. I truly know that I am a sinner, and I want to just be baptized so I can leave all that in the water and
Yeah.
have His Holy Spirit dwell within me.
That's awesome. So as 15 and a half, and you're on a base by yourself, like, I mean, you must be a pretty, like, strong, independent.
Well, I didn't know it. I didn't know that I was, but
Okay.
looking back, I know that I was.
I mean, you think about 15-year-olds today, they can barely wake up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they barely get out of bed. They don't,
Yeah.
they can't function
Yeah.
unless somebody else is taking care of them. I mean, that's a pretty huge step.
When I came back home to have our first son, and then went back with him when he was restationed over in Norfolk. So that was probably the real hard time, I think.
When you
for-
came back.
going to Virginia. Like, first it was just like fun. It's like, wow, I'm on a plane. I've not experienced all this,
Yeah.
And, then we just, I don't know. It was fun. But I didn't know it was as scary as, it's a different world too. Like, I wouldn't want to do it now as an adult.
Right.
woman,
You mean the
so-
military life?
Yeah,
Just-
and just in general, like being, I think now you just take everything's just more instant, and then I felt, in a way, I felt protected there because of the military.
Yeah.
So,
So were you on, like, in there for a long time, and were you on deployments and gone? And
Yeah, well, it was just for one term, but
is
I
one
was on
term
a-
4 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was on an aircraft carrier, which is the Roosevelt, and I was the first crew, so they call us a plank owner. So you get a piece of plank, a piece of wood that says you have lifetime rights to go onto that ship, and which is kind of cool. That was a cool part of it. And I was an aviation ordnanceman, so I was trained to work with bombs and missiles and load them on the F-18s on the flight deck, send them out. So a lot of training there, electrical armament systems, stuff like that I hope to be able to use when I got out. But anyways, yeah, did that. So we would do sea trials. We'd go out, test the ship, blow up things around it. Like, they blew up big things of TNT. They'd have drones come out. We'd shoot missiles at them. Just all kinds of tests. Go as fast as you could, and they'd turn it, as sharp as they could. And it was neat. That was a neat time. So, but for married life, we're going in and out to sea and not being there. That was
Yeah.
kind of rough on her. So she's definitely a strong person to be able to make it through that and not leave me.
Yeah, so
But-
were there lots of struggles in those 4 years?
There were lots of struggles in those 4 years, because that's just people, like, you want to see sin at its worst, that's where you're going to see it at.
In the military.
Yeah, I mean, it's different when you're deployed, but, you see people going out, their husbands will go out to sea, and the woman would get with another guy, and we ended up with a couple of people. We couldn't really afford to live much. You barely get by, and then we moved in with a friend, well, his friend ended up cheating with him on his wife, and they got divorced, and just stupid stuff like that happened all the time.
Wow.
So then she just, at one point, she's like, I got to move back because she can't deal with it. So.
Yeah, it was just too much. It was.
So you moved. Go ahead.
My parents, in the time that we got married and moved away, my parents divorced for their third time. They divorced and got remarried 3 times. So that was really hard for me because I didn't want that to happen to us. And I was seeing it there and then seeing it at home. And so I just came back and kind of helped out with my sisters were younger, and they loved the baby. And so we just kind of that was kind of an okay place to be.
For how long were you guys not separated, but you're living here, you're living
Probably
there?
the last 6 months was it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were together
Yeah.
most of the time,
Right.
and then I was getting ready to go out to sea, and she's like, I'm just going home. I'm not
Right.
going to sit there while you're out to sea.
Right,
again."
because you're going to be done anyway.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Yeah.
So then I got out, and I don't know, she's probably said if I would re-enlisted, I was like, hey, they want me to re-enlist. And she's like, well, I don't think that's a good idea.
It was just not good. It wasn't a good scene.
right. So then what happens? You move back and you.
Yeah, so thinking that, hey, I got this under my belt, a lot of training, a lot of education, come back, find a job, and Western Wheel was happening back then. I thought I'd go to the airport and at least be a baggage handler. Nope, couldn't happen. So we moved to Markle, got an apartment there, started looking for jobs, and worked at a few factories. Western Wheel was one of them, insulation plant, friction material before they shut down and deemed that place, absolutely horrible. But yeah, just went through a couple of factory jobs, and I was in the National Guard too because part of my initial enlistment was to do reserve status for 7 years. So instead of going up to Great Lakes, I talked them into letting me switch to local unit here, the National Guards, and they did end up getting their mortar platoon and became part of their armory as well.
And so in this process, marriage is going good, faith is going good, you guys are tracking pretty well.
Coming back, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I got into drinking pretty heavy probably, I started drinking when I was 13, alcohol and exploring things, drugs, sex, and rock and roll was in the 80s. So. But anyways, so alcohol became a problem for me in my life. So not so much for her. She stayed away from it for a long time. So, but then eventually,
And so,
got into it.
let's just make sure I get this right. So you move her out there, you move back, and so you fight for your marriage because it's kind of hard, and then you come back, and then you're drinking, and then is that hard? Is that part hard? Or you were just kind of again, I'm just trying to get a handle because I've never
Right.
heard this story
Yes.
before.
No.
So
Yeah.
was that difficult in your marriage?
It
Like,
just
did
became
alcohol
a part
cause a
of
problem?
It probably did, yeah. It did, for sure. And it became a part of kind of like our entire family does. Everything we did revolved around alcohol almost. It's like, and I wasn't through the week alcoholic. I'd work hard, and then on the weekends, it's like Friday night comes, you drink some beers, a couple beers leads to 6 or 10. You do it again Saturday, you go to work Monday. And, Monday through Friday you're working, and it's just like everything we did. We go camping, it all revolved around that. So seemed like, but we realized that, and then it'll steal a lot from you. So
And then that process, were you guys going to church? Were you not going to church? Was it kind of in between?
We've been to marriage counseling 3 times, and we renewed our vows at 15 years. At that point, that was where I think that it hit both of us that we were married, and we were married for the right reasons, and we were married with the blessing of God, before us. Our children were with us in the ceremony, and that was very powerful for me. And I know it was for John too. It didn't stop the drinking. We did come from alcoholic families. Well, not so much his dad and stepmom, but my family. I'm not going to call my families alcoholics. That sounds bad. But
Yeah.
everything we do and everything we did when I was at home was around alcohol. But I went to West Virginia every summer before I met John, and was with my Aunt Marie and Uncle Billy, and they kind of showed me what it looked like in a normal no alcohol family. And that really was something that I always seek. I desired it. Like I knew what it looked like, and it was healthy. And but then there was a turning point. My dad died November. It'll be 22 years, and that was a cancer that I prayed and prayed that would be taken away from me, and it didn't. So I didn't really drink. I kind of poured it into the kids, but then just started like picking it up here and there, different events. Then Mom passed away 5 years ago from the same cancer. And I had prayed and brought 2 ministers in to pray with her through hers, and then I just started drinking just because it was easy to not feel. I still prayed.
Yeah.
Still, it just was. I didn't have a handle on it.
Right. Just something to numb the pain. Yeah, so
we've had breaks, like, though. It's just weird because, like, there's times where, we would seek God and we'd just put that aside and focus on God, and then, something would happen, we'd fall back into it, and then focus on God, and then fall back into it, and that's
we
like
went to Australia with our children on a missions trip. Like, I've been to Haiti on missions trips. I love missions trips. Like, it's just, I know that he's been to Honduras with a group of men. So it's not like, it's not easy for, the will of God when you're seeking it, but when you're hurt and in pain, I think it's just so much easier to landslide right back into not feeling like the flesh.
Right.
And
Yeah, because you guys were in Australia for a little bit of
6
time,
months.
right?
6 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the plan to stay longer? Like,
Yeah.
what was
They
the
wanted
plan?
us to. A
Okay.
year. It was a year that
Okay.
they wanted us there.
But things just changed. Like, I don't know, they called us to do one thing, and then we got there, it was a whole nother thing, but we kind of ran out of funds. Like, you had to raise our own money, so we'd go from the church within the Wesleyan denomination, and that's basically get up for the service, give, what our testimony was and why we wanted to go, and then people would, make money or give money for that. We did sell, like, our car and some other thing, everything but our house, really, to go on it. And back then, like, homeschool wasn't popular. It was in 1999. So we spent the millennium, or the changeover there from 99 to 2000. So,
But I homeschooled.
but we got the blessing. Yeah, she homeschooled. All the teachers gave the blessing. Some people were like, we don't know why you're going there. There's people here in the United States. Why are you going there? And for us, it was just a heart. Like, we felt like our heart is where God wanted us. Like, we were seeking, like, is missions what you want us to do type of a thing. So. And before that, we were at the Wesleyan youth conferences, and they had worship bands, big conferences, and like, we would go with our kids because they were in the youth group, and God would minister to us through that. And we just got it in our heart, like, hey, we need to get into missions. I feel like this is what God's calling us to do, And so we looked in, started going that direction. Like she said, she went to Haiti, and I went to Honduras, and I was at a boys' school. We built some stuff for them. It was awesome. So that was my first taste of it, and then. Haiti was her first taste of it, and then we thought from there we'd build up and went into this thing in Australia, and it just ended up being a blessing for us all the way around. Like, you know, yeah, we had to make some sacrifices, and we thought we were giving everything over to God, but really He was blessing us more than we ever blessed anybody while we were over there. So it was beautiful.
And how many kids do you have?
3.
3.
Mm.
So
Two
their
boys and a girl.
yeah, so their perspective, you know, in that journey of being on mission trips and just kind of following along with the ups and downs. How did they? I mean, I'm assuming you guys have talked through them with all of these. You know, is there like, hey, we've learned and have watched, and because I'm always curious how that dynamic, because a lot of families go through that of we're on fire and things are going good, and then it's like we're not for a while, and then they're good, and so.
And I guess that's one of the reasons, like, I feel like coming on here is I want my kids to know that, in my family, or even my wife, like, I want her, I've prayed that God, you know, would allow the fruits of His Spirit be evident in my life, not through my speaking, but through my actions. And this is what I want to see for the rest of my life. Like, you know, I've really sought Him more than I ever before. Like, we were in a dark spot, like, and that's what, like, the ups and downs, in and out, back and forth, and, you know, I just got to a point where it's just like I was dark, you know, empty, void, whatever you want to call it, and there's a lot of, you know, frustration. There's a lot of, I guess, I didn't realize it, but, you know, God started revealing things to me, like judgmentalness, you know, selfishness, and there's just a lot of anger inside that, and I wanted to be happy. I wanted that joy, and so did she. You know, we would fight, and I'm like, this has to stop, you know. And I asked God to deliver us from that and get us out of this place. I knew Him enough to know, you know, and felt that drawing. So, and He did. He drew us out of that pit, that dark spot. And He's just, it's like it says in, I don't know, Ecclesiastics, where it's cool because I started reading the Word and God would do something and then I'd read it. Like, so He says that He'll remove your heart of stone and give you a new heart, and He'll put His Spirit inside of you. And that's what He's done, you know. And I always had a relationship with Christ, or I knew who He was, but I don't know if I went. And I tried to go a little bit that way and listen to some of your sermons. I went so far, and then I stepped back, you know. I didn't go all in. I still tried to maintain control. And now He's just like, I want Him to be Lord of my life. I want His desires to be my desires, and I've seen that there's no better way to live. You know, I've lived the wrong way, and it's not good. And we've lived the right way too.
Yeah,
but,
right.
And I want my kids to. I feel like He's drawing us into more of an obedient relationship and a walk with Him, that we're steadfast and become more mature rather than going back and forth.
Yeah, so here's a
tossed back and
question. When
forth.
you said God drew you out of a dark place, so there are people listening that are in dark places. Like, I just know that for the amount of people that listen, the amount of people that, you know, watch, there are people there. What advice would you give them, either one of you or both of you, on getting out of a dark place? Because it feels like, I think if you talk to most people, you feel stuck there, right? Like, once you get to that place, and dark, low, I mean, whatever you want to call it, how do you help them get out of it? Like, what would you tell them to do? What did you guys do? Because there's always our part, His part, you know, but what was your part of it?
I'm still in counseling. Because I think sometimes if we listen to our own head, that it can keep us there, because things aren't always what they seem. So I would just trust that, read the Bible. That's stay in it daily.
And for you, you're saying, and a counselor's helping you navigate that process of.
And like I feel like I was really starting to just be, this is it. This is the way it looks. This is, I felt helpless, like, and not able, like I didn't have it in me. He would keep saying, do you want to go for a walk? No, I don't. You know, it was coming to church and if I could get him to take us out to eat every night, that was okay too, because I just didn't want to be a part of any of it anymore. And starting counseling has just really helped me. So
Yeah, for me, it was just realizing, like, I had to seek God. I knew I didn't want to be in that place anymore. You know, I didn't want to be thinking the way I was thinking. I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling. So I did seek God out, and then I also argued with him, battled with him. Like, I would go on walks, I think 6 months before I even come to this church and watch your videos, and he would be speaking to me, and I would just wrestle with God. And then finally I just came to the end of myself, and I'm like, I had to let him be in control of these things. And you know, that whole renewal of your mind is big, you know, no longer conform to the ways of the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And you know, that he puts his spirit in and he changes our heart. And I prayed that. And like, I started getting into his word. I made a commitment to get into the Bible and start reading it. And I, you know, started with Revelations because of curiosity. And then I went to the gospel, got through the New Testament. And then now I've, you know, gotten through up to Proverbs. And there's a lot of stuff in the Old Testament. I've never read it all the way through. I just took what the preacher said or little bits that, oh, this one sounds good, so I'll use it. But when I started applying it to my life and doing what it said, it's changing my heart. It's like that where the big one big verse that got for me is where Jacob wrestled with God. I felt like I wrestled with God like he did.
Still walking with a limp.
Yeah. And I'm still wrestling some things. Right. Like, I'm still working through it. He's still changing my heart, but he did give me a new name. And then he also, there's that verse where he calls them out to bury their idols and to change or wash their clothes and then move them to a new place. And he's done that for us. So like, he's doing that. He's moved us here. You know, we're almost 3 years here. And it's been just, your teachings are great, right on. And it's really getting in the groups is helping. A lot, actually, more lately than earlier, and then getting into the Word truly, and just, you know, being committed to that every day has really helped me out. So, drawing me out of that, and he's shown us a little bit more of the light rather than the darkness. Helped me to think about and focus on those things and not the dark things. So, not the broken relationships, not the stupid things that happen or that I've done, you know, or that anybody else has done to us. So,
we've done the marriage class here, and then also a small group. And I think those things have pushed us to be able to look back and go, yeah, we've been in this 3 years now. Wow. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, because you're in a place and you don't, like, okay, fine, we'll go to church. You know, and he kept saying, I'm really listening to this guy, and I really think you'd like him. And then he started the Monday nights, and I'm like, okay. You know, it wasn't negative, but it was just like, okay, you know, like, we've done this before, you know, kind of thing. And then I think in the marriage class, it was really hard for me at one point, because he was like, well, we were in a really bad place. I don't think you realize how bad it is. And I'm like, what? Like, what does that even mean? You know, and so I'm glad that we do have the church, the family, the places that you can reach into. And if people aren't doing that and they're feeling like they're still in a dark place, you have to go towards the light. I mean, God is not going to just pick you up and put you, but he'll guide you, and he'll lead you, and he'll open those doors. So
And then something else that I did want to make a point, like the whole series you did about original design and being a man and what your role is, and I realized through that, and then one of the groups I'm in now, we're just starting the study on what it's like to be a man of God. And I mean, I know what it's like to be a man of the world, because, you know, we did I was in the service, and put myself through college, and we started a business, and, you know, I hunt. I get what it means to be a man of the world, but the man of God's totally opposite. And what I did with her, you know, I had to apologize to her a couple weeks ago, because it hit me hard. I was like, I left her, I took my guard down, and opened her up for attack in our life and our family, because I wasn't being the man of God who I was supposed to be. I wasn't protecting, and I was doing good at providing. That was fine. But I just wasn't, supporting her. I wasn't encouraging and lifting her up and built. I'm not sure I did that with my kids all the time like I should have. And I feel like that opened things up for the world to come in on us.
Well, and I think that's an interesting concept, because if I would guess if people were looking at the outside and looking at you guys, they would have said you did a great job, right? Like, you build a business and you employ a lot of people and it's successful, and you know what I mean? And I think it's good for us to recognize, and I think that's the stuff that God does for us as men, is to just realize, like, we missed it. Like, we might have done all of these things right, but I think it's a great place to come to the understanding, like, you know what, I'm sorry, you're right, I missed it. Yeah, I wasn't standing at the door watching, right? Because that's the big thing. For a man, the idea is, are you even watching? Because we're so, you know what I mean? Like, because that's what he says, is you need to stand at the door and watch.
Yeah, I was busy fulfilling my own desires, not worrying about what anybody else wanted.
Well, and fulfilling your family's desires.
Yeah, theirs too, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You were doing it out of the right heart.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I mean, you were doing it because it makes sense to us to take care of our wives. Makes sense to us to take care of, but we misinterpret take care of sometimes.
Yes.
Spiritually. Yeah, with that idea that, are we standing at our doors, and are we watching, and are we protecting, from knowing that the demonic is out there trying to destroy our wives. Do you know what I mean?
For
like,
sure.
That's a crazy thing to think of, that as men, we know that Satan's trying to destroy him, and we just kind of sit back and be like, Ignore it. Right. But I think that's common, right? So have you seen a big difference that way? In the way that, like, he's talking about the change and seeing the change coming, and as a wife sitting on the other side, how does it?
I pray a lot for John and ask God to show me John's heart, and he does that. So I've always seen John's heart, or I wouldn't still be here, through God's eyes. Even though I'm, like, that's why it was so, like, when he goes, we were in a bad spot, I guess to me we weren't, like, even though we argued and I'd get mad, and I have a temper because I'm a Collins, but I can tell that he seeks God for everything that he does now, and that wasn't something he did. I'm proud of who he is as a man, and a husband and a dad. Like, he's a blessing. Like, it was sin, but it was also a blessing that when we came together, that I'll always be in love with him.
Aww. Now that's a love story right
Sure
there.
is.
That is a love story right there. Because that's cool. I mean, I think that's, I think that's. I just think for wives, that too is such a thing to remember. That try to see your man through the way that God sees him, and help him become that. Because I think it's easily the other way of, like, see him the way that we think that he is, but not who he can be. And I think to help men, I think that's a perfect example. To help a man get to where he needs to be, it's probably a good idea to see him for who God sees him to be, and not just keep tearing him down, or, because that's essentially what you said. Like, if you just would have looked through your own eyes, you would have been done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like, you would have quit a long
absolutely.
time ago. And that's probably a lot of wives.
Right.
You know what I mean? If we just,
But I think he would too. Like, I still think that God was protecting it, but it's still, as easy as it is to pick up alcohol, it is to push somebody out of your life too. It is. Like, people can come and go, especially nowadays more than I feel like before. We allow an easy button to guide our emotions, our situations, and it's just not something that's ever been an option for me. So
Yeah, so because we're getting towards the end. So let's talk about you guys have had, which is so cool because I didn't know. As many times as we've talked, I've never known that part of your story. So I mean, you guys have a plethora of life experience. You
Yeah,
know what I
we
mean?
couldn't get through them all.
So
It was hard to come here. I'm like, okay, what do we even talk about?
Well, that's
Like,
my
okay,
point,
God,
but
it's on you.
Yeah, but I think that's the cool part of it is you have such a vast plethora of experience in the way that God's used and things that you've done, and that's going to come out, like you said, in the groups that you're in and the people that you're with, and those stories over time are just going to continue to come out, and people are going to learn from your lives and the things that you're doing and the wisdom that you have, because we have to remember that you guys have wisdom because you've been there on one side and you fought to the other, right? Like that's wisdom. I mean, wisdom is we've been in these places, but we fought to the other side, and so we know what it's like on both sides of it, you know.
For
and
sure,
so
yeah.
it's great wisdom for a lot of people. But if you could take the vastness of your life experience and you could say to people that are watching or listening, what would be a nugget of advice, or whether it's for marriage, right? So if it is like for young married couples, like here's a nugget of advice, or if it's for men that are trying to figure out how to get out of the cycle of what we think is right and do what's right, or for women that are struggling with a man that doesn't always get it right, but I still want to love him well and have him know that I'm proud of him. Like any nuggets, thoughts? Is that too vast to think through?
For me, like, it's just the biggest impact God's made in my life is just getting into His Word, for sure, and then getting around other people, and surrounding yourself with people that love God, that believe Jesus is their Lord and Savior, and then just being in discipline to the prayer and that relationship with God, like seeking Him. And He shows up. It's amazing, you know. It's not like it's even a discipline. It's just like you seek Him, you're gonna find Him. You know, you just have to turn to Him. And it's just I had to get to that point where it's like I wanted to be done with myself and do what God wants me to do. So, but getting into words helped a lot, and just constantly being, you know, in a prayer relationship, just like our relationship, and then putting Him in the center of our marriage. So, and then hopefully bringing that into our kids' life as well.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
And I had a very, very special girl say to me that she was afraid that her life situations were changing who she is today. And so for me, my heart would be that all women, young and old, remember that your heart is who God created, like you to be. Your image of who you are isn't your circumstance, but it's if you really seek your heart that God loves, that, and you can do that through His Word, that He will definitely guide you, lead you, and direct you, and then you can have the strengths that you don't think you have.
Yeah, so that's great advice. Chase the Lord, know your identity.
Yeah.
Right? Like know that regardless of the circumstances of life, your identity isn't in circumstance, and we can want all we want, right? That's what you were saying, John. We can want all we want, but until you start chasing, you ain't getting it.
yeah.
Right. So get up, start chasing, do our part, because again, what you guys have said throughout all of this is that God is unchanging, right, at the end of the day. And we can do this and go there and over here. God's unchanging. And when we choose to turn, He's there, right? And that's through the different stories that you guys have talked about. And so wherever people are at in life, understanding their identity of who they are and that they could get up and turn and He's going to be there waiting, I think is great comfort for so many people.
And I feel like He definitely draws us to Himself. Like you wouldn't turn to Him unless He drew you to Him.
Yeah.
And then He presents you to Christ, and Christ works on your heart, and it's just awesome. I'm excited about our journey here, you know, in the future, and just I know God's calling me to be a better man of God, and He's calling me to be more obedient and not to be so back and forth like I used to be. So I'm looking forward to that.
for all of us. Don't be like the reeds swaying with the wind.
Yeah.
Be grounded, be foundational, be who we are, because I think the wind's coming.
Yeah.
You know, I think we've had breezes, but I think years to come is winds that are going to not just make reeds sway. That's what the scripture talks about. Don't be like the reeds swaying in the wind. I think it's going to be ripping the reeds out of the, you know, I think that kind of headwind's coming when it comes to faith. So, yeah, get grounded. Be like the tree planted next to the stream. The roots go deep, and he says that it'll never wither and it'll always produce fruit.
Yes.
Right? That's what we're striving to do. So, again, I'm super excited about what God's doing in you guys' life, and it's so cool to see that you've been through so much, but you've persevered and you've come out, and that we got a church full of young people. Like, this is the thing that I'm super excited about is Life Church is diverse. You know, it's young and old, and, you know, people coming from different backgrounds. And as we age and God gives us life experience and wisdom, if we can pass that on to the younger generation, that we can be examples of what those things look like, because I do think they're looking, and I do think that people are wondering, you know, what that looks like. And if we can help young men and young women head off from making decisions that are life-altering, you know what I mean, and try to help them get on a track that's in the right way and learn, you know, from couples like you guys, I just think it's so awesome. So I appreciate you guys sharing your story. Life Church loves that, again, that you guys are here and going to be a part of, and love that you be willing to share your story and be willing to pour into the lives of other people. So when this comes out, if you're listening, make sure that you go on our YouTube channel and watch, because that's the other cool thing, is so that you can get to know them. You can put a face, you know, with a name and come up and see. I think you guys are second service people, first service people. Is it
We're
both?
wherever the need is.
Okay.
Mainly first.
I
So
like
whatever it
doing
is,
children.
yeah, you can come up and say hi, watch, so you can get to know them. And again, leave comments, or when this comes out, make sure you like it or share it, so we can get you guys' story out to as many people as possible, because I think a lot of people will be impacted by your willingness to share where you are, what God's doing in your life. And again, we just love for you guys to share that with other people. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.